Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another chess video. Today, I'm gonna be doing the Vienna opening. So, of course, the Vienna opening is for white and you would play e4. Opponent has to respond with e5. If the opponent responds to c6, I'll do another video on this. It's called the Caro-Kann defense. But what you can do as white. So, today we're gonna be covering e4, e5. And instead of the usual knight f3, where you play into the Italian, the Ponziani, the Ruy Lopez, you are going to be playing knight c3. What does knight c3 do? It controls d5 and e4, delay the development of this knight to play f4, gambiting a pawn so that when they take, you get a full center. There are a few ways opponent can respond. There is knight c6, knight f6, bishop b4, and bishop c5. Today I'm going to be covering knight f6. Now for knight f6, you are just going to play pawn to f4. The main move is d5, but there are a few ways the opponent can lose on the spot. Number one is that they take your pawn. If they take your pawn, you actually can just push your pawn forward, and this knight has no choice but to go back. It can't come here or here because of the knights. It can't come here because of the queen controlling these two squares. Knight has no choice but to undevelop itself, and you might say take the full center, but that's actually a bad move because of queen h4 check. g3 and pawn takes. And if you try to attack the queen, the opponent can sack the queen, and after that they get one queen back. So at the end of the day, black is up a rook and a pawn, and white is just losing in this position. Instead, you want to prevent queen h4 from happening, and you play knight f3. There are a lot of ways the opponent can respond. The best move is probably d6. No matter what the opponent plays, d4, d5, or whatever, your best move is going to be d4. Just take control of the center regardless of any move. Even if d5, if en passant is possible, just play d4 and take control of the center. D takes c5, and instead of just taking the pawn right away, I recommend queen e2. You pin the pawn to the king and you can pick up these two pawns at once. Something like bishop e7 to unpin the pawn, you just snag the pawn and you have extra interest. You can win yourself an extra pawn on g7 and maybe even trapping the rook if the opponent is blind. But of course, your opponent is not going to be blind. They're just going to play knight f6. And this is when you can take your f-pawn, you castle queen side, you put your bishop on c4, and life is good. You just play towards this side of the board. If the king castles this side, it's even better for you because most of your pieces are placed towards the king side. So you can just use your pawns to the attack. So what if the natural move knight c6, trying to develop a piece? Well, you can actually just take the pawn in the center. After knight takes, d4. So now you have full control of the center, and now this knight has to move again, regardless where it moves. Here, here, or even here, you are just going to play e5, and this knight has to go back again. So now you just play knight f3, and we just have the full central control, and we're not even a pawn down. Material is equal, but white is of course better with, us controlling so much space in the center, and development is very easy. Bishop c4, bishop f4, sometimes maybe even bishop g5 if possible, but in this case it's not. But most likely you want to put your light square bishop on bishop c4, castle, and go for some sort of king side attack. Or you can even do some queen side expansions if you wish to. And there's another move by black that he can play, and that is d6. This is to protect the pawn in the center, but this is not like the best move. It's the second best move. You can just play knight f3, developing a piece and attacking this pawn. Again, they still cannot take this pawn. I mean, they can if they want to, but are they really giving you the full center just for one pawn? And this pawn, you're going to win it back anyway. Sure, you can defend, But after knight d5, what are you gonna do? This pawn is attacked twice now, and the queen can't come to defend. That's the best part, because the knight controls this square. So, of course, you just play knight f3, and you play bishop c4, d3, bishop e3, castles, or you move up your queen to e2, and then you castle queenside. But, of course, at higher rating, they will play the main move d5. d5, you play f takes e5, knight takes e5, and of course, Gotham chess favorite, queen f3. 3 moves by the opponent, here, here, and takes. If they play takes, there are 2 ways to play this, taking towards the center or taking away from the center. If you take away from the center, your goal is to castle queenside. If you take towards the center, your goal is to build the center, putting the bishop on e3, knight e2, and sometimes might rotate to knight f4 depending on the situation. Something like bishop e7, you grab the center, they castles, bishop d3, knight out, knight e2, and you are going to play for a lot of ideas here. You're going to go knight f4, or you can go knight g3. You can decide to go for some kingside attack, rook b1, taking control of the open file, and yeah, you have open f and b files for you to incorporate into your attack. The beauty of this opening is that it is very flexible. You can do a queenside attack if you want. Preferably you want to do a kingside attack. So that's about it for if they play knight takes c3. If they play knight c6, attacking your pawn, pin the knight to the king is the best way to play. And of course, you have moves like bishop d7, unpinning. You're going to take this knight, and you are winning back a pawn. You're up a pawn in this position. This should be okay. Of course, we have here, but simply just develop your pieces, and all is fine. And what if f5? This is my favorite line. All you do is play d3. The best move. They take the knight, you play c3, and I've gotten games where they just come here. You know, I've seen a lot of bishop e6, a lot of bishop e7s. If they play d4, is the best move by black. Every single move they play, you either play bishop e2 or queen g3. Of course, you have to see the context. But of course, in this position, you should play bishop e2 first. And there are some positions where, you know, they come here. Knight here. You just go queen g3. And your idea is that you're going to give a check on h5 and sacrifice the bishop. Bishop e6 is one of the moves. But if that happens, you play c4. You play bishop f3, knight e2, and kingside castle. And of course, you put your rook on the open file, and you're going to use your pieces into attacking the king. Best case scenario is if they take your pawn, because it gives you extra time to go queen g3. Of course, it's still pretty much stoppable, bishop e6. But again, if they go here, you just go bishop f3, knight e2, targeting this pawn. You might want to take it if you want, but if they defend, for example, they try to defend using the bishop, you can centralize your knight with knight f4, attacking this light square bishop, asking it to piss off. But if they play some natural move, which like a lot of games, you know, you're gonna see this, you know, oh, I'm developing a piece, they lose to bishop h5 check. This is a crushing move. Losers on the spot, by the way. Best move is king d7, which you can simply just play bishop f7, threatening e6 check, and this is game over. d4. If d4 preventing you from going e6, you go knight e2, kicking away this knight. Knight takes, king takes, and now this is winning for you. Bishop e7. Unfortunately, this actually hangs the pawn, and also you don't even have to take. You can just go rook b1, but just take the pawn, and be happy with what you have. And yeah, this is completely losing for black. Like, his king is very weak. You're threatening e6 check and all these kind of nasty checks. And also there's a discovered attack on the pawn, so you're going to grab that as well. The bishop joins in the attack, and basically all the pieces joins the attack on the king. But if they block with the pawn, you are going to sacrifice the bishop, because after they take, queen takes g6 check. If they come here, they lose their queen through a skewer. If they come here, you give a check with the pawn. They can't come here because of the skewer. You go down. This is the key move. And you give a discovered check with pawn to e7. And of course, if they take the pawn here, they lose the queen. And you don't take, we're going to take the queen regardless. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the theory part for if they ever play knight to f6. I hope you guys enjoyed this Vienna opening video. Have a nice day.